Okay, today we are going over top 10 vehicle maintenance tips. Tip number 1 has to do with your initial oil change on a brand new car or a brand new engine. If you look in the owner's manual, it may tell you to change it at 6,000 or 5,000 miles. I think that is way too long for your first initial oil change, what they refer to as a break-in oil change. My recommendation: your break-in oil change should be done between 500 miles and 1,000 miles. I wouldn't wait longer than 1,000 miles. Why? Well, if you think about it, a brand new engine that's put together in a factory is going to have manufacturing debris inside of it potentially. But as the piston rings seat, they're going to slough off some very minor metal shavings inside your engine. And you don't want those metal shavings to be circulating through your engine, causing premature damage or wear. Your engine oil filter is only going to capture debris down to a certain micron rating. Anything smaller than that is going to go right through your filter. Or if that really small, fine debris doesn't even make it to your filter, it could just be inside the oil pan or inside the engine. So again, that break-in oil change, my recommendation between 500 miles and 1,000 miles, and then every subsequent oil change after that should be 5,000 miles or 6 months, whichever comes first. Maintenance tip number 2, it's a good idea if you can to pre-fill your new engine oil filter with new oil before you screw it on to your engine. That way, when you first initially start your engine, your oil pressure will go up more quickly as opposed to starting the engine with an empty oil filter. Because some of the most aggressive wear, if you will, can occur when you first start your engine. And remember to put some new oil on that rubber seal on the new oil filter. And don't over tighten your oil filter when you put it on. And there's plenty of data online already, YouTube videos, etc., that have data, that have done the studies if you want to do a deep dive. So you don't just have to take my word for it. You can do your own research. Pre-filling your engine oil filter is a good idea. There's already been studies done on this to show how your oil pressure goes up pretty much instantly when you pre-fill your engine oil filter when you do an oil change. So you reduce that wear. And also, when we spoke earlier about your initial break-in engine oil change, there's plenty of studies and videos online you can watch that have data, and they prove that, again, doing that initial oil change at 500 to 1,000 miles is much safer or beneficial for your new engine or your new vehicle than waiting till 5,000 or 6,000 miles. So just FYI. Maintenance tip number 3, do not fall for the myth of lifetime transmission fluid. Or a dealership or a car manufacturer, even the owner's manual may tell you, oh, your transmission fluid is good for the lifetime of the vehicle or the lifetime of the transmission. I would not fall for that. I strongly recommend you change it every few years, every 50,000 miles. But make sure you change it with the exact transmission fluid OEM that your vehicle comes with. Don't try to substitute something different. Use the OEM transmission fluid and measure what you take out of the transmission when you drain it. So you put in exactly the correct amount of new transmission fluid back in. And when I do that, I use a plastic graduated pitcher. So I'll fill that up with the old transmission fluid. I'll mark a line on it so I know exactly how much fluid I took out. I'll dump that into a bucket, clean out the jug, and I'll fill it up with clean transmission fluid. Make sure I'm putting in the exact correct amount. And usually you want to stay away from transmission flushes, because when you do a transmission flush, you could potentially flush very fine debris into the passageways that the fluid flows in, inside your transmission or in little valves. And you don't want to cause a problem, especially if your transmission is working fine. The point here being, a transmission is a mechanical device with moving internal parts. It heats up when you're driving your vehicle, creates friction, so that fluid over time is going to break down, is going to get The friction material from the clutch discs is going to get fine, very fine metal shavings from the moving parts. So again, you don't want to let your fluid go for the lifetime of your vehicle. That's not a good idea in my professional opinion. Maintenance tip number 4 is brakes. You want to inspect and maintain the brake fluid level in the reservoir inside the engine compartment. If it's starting to look dirty and dark yellow or dark brown, it probably needs to be replaced. And monitor your brake pads as well and your rotors, and do a brake job as needed. If they start squealing or making weird noises, you want to take it in and get that serviced. Or if you're handy, you can do your own brake job. Maintenance tip number 5, your coolant or antifreeze. You want to change it at the specified interval in the owner's manual, but you want to make sure that you use the specified coolant that is for your vehicle. Don't mix and match coolants. Make sure you use the correct one because there are different types of coolants. It should tell you in your owner's manual how much coolant your vehicle takes, what type of coolant, or you can maybe even look on the radiator cap and it may even tell you there. And a lot of modern coolants do not need to be diluted with water. So again, always read your owner's manual for sure. Tip number 6 is your batteries. Make sure the battery is clean on top. There's not a bunch of corrosion. If there is, you want to clean off that corrosion. Make sure the battery cables are tight and not loose or corroded. If you have a maintenance-free battery, you don't need to check the electrolyte level. If you do not have a maintenance-free battery, then you will periodically need to check the electrolyte level in the battery. And if you need to replace your battery, make sure you get one that has the correct cold cranking amps that's rated for your engine. Maintenance tip number 7, when you're cleaning your car, I'd recommend using microfiber towels for washing and drying your car. And when you clean your windows, especially if you have tinted windows, you want to use an ammonia-free glass cleaner. And be sure to spray some kind of protectant on your plastic trim. Number 8, tires. Be sure to check the tread, make sure they're not wearing unevenly. Be sure that the tread isn't worn down to the wear bars. Keep your tires aired up, even if you have a tire pressure monitoring system. And especially make sure you check your spare tire. Keep that aired up. Tires do have a lifespan to them, even if their tread is still good. Keep that in mind. And if you have an all-wheel drive vehicle, you don't just want to replace one tire. Let's say you have a bad tire, it goes flat, gets damaged. You really need to replace all 4, because the issue is it throws off the all-wheel drive system and can potentially damage the all-wheel drive system if the tires are, different weights, etc. Tip number 9, ideally you never want to let your gas tank run down too low, like at 1/8 of a tank, 1/4 of a tank, etc. Because remember, your fuel pump sits down inside that fuel tank and the fuel helps keep it cool. And you never want to run the risk of cavitating that fuel pump. To replace a fuel pump is very expensive. So ideally, my recommendation would be to never let your fuel tank drop below 1/2 a tank. And use the proper gas that the manufacturer calls for your engine. And there's been studies that have proven that using the gas treatment, like say every oil change, you pour a bottle of gas treatment in your gas tank to help reduce the amount of carbon buildup in the intake valves and exhaust valves. So that's something I'd recommend. And last but not least, tip number 10, I'd recommend an emergency roadside kit. You can buy them at your local big box store or online, or you can make your own kit. But you want to have things like a pair of jumper cables, perhaps some spare fuses, a first aid kit, a flashlight, maybe some basic hand tools. If you live in snow country, you may want to have something like a small collapsible snow shovel, perhaps tire chains, or a tow rope or tow line for your vehicle. What other things would you add to this list that I might have forgotten? Leave a comment down below and let me know. Please like, share, subscribe, leave me a comment, and thanks for watching.